We're here today to talk about application security and practically of how and what we can do with Nginx to make your web applications more secure, more protective against hacker attacks. So my name is Stefan, and I'm co-founder of Warm Company. It is a web application security company. What we do is protect really high-load sites against hacker attacks. So it is a kind of combination of application firewall and vulnerability scanner. I will give you a brief review of what it is a little bit later. So let me start with some stats here. For example, we have great numbers like 70% of all the attacks right now are carried out over the web application layer, and it is a huge number. And 26% of all the data breaches in 12.14 is the reason of the critical vulnerabilities in the web applications again. So actually, these figures freak me out because when I put my personal data on the website, on every website practically, I'm pretty sure that this website can be hacked someday, and some bad guys will get all the data. This is not good. Oh, sorry. Some lag with. Yeah. So the question for you here: how many of you deploy production code every day? Yeah, lots of you. And the second question: how many of you work for a company where security development lifecycle is used? Only 2 of you. Yeah. So this is the reason why the things are very bad. Our agenda today is to understand what we can do with Nginx to protect the application against hacker attacks, what we can do to deal very simple DDoS attacks, and what we can do to stop some bots that crawl your website. So it is not a rocket science, actually. So if you're a high-level security engineer, I'm not sure you'll be interested. But if you're DevOps or developer, I guess it might be interesting for you of what you can do. So why Nginx? I guess everyone here likes Nginx, and you have instances of Nginx, working as reverse proxy or a load balancer, maybe some other cases. So traffic is already passed through all the Nginx instances, so we can use it. So we just need to give Nginx some modules and tools to analyze this traffic, this is a good thing because if you install the application firewall just as a hardware or virtual appliance somewhere in your infrastructure, you'll create new point of failure. And if you use the Nginx that is already used in your company, they will know point of failure, and it is pretty good. And what we see in many companies that servers and virtual machines that are used for Nginx, they have plenty of resources, so it is possible to give these machines some more tasks, and it is good. So practically, I'm not sure, but my infrastructure in some pet projects looks like this. So I have a layer of Nginx instances. They are used for load balancer, reverse proxy, and I have some applications. So nothing new here. So on this layer with Nginx, we can do a lot of stuff, and I will give you some, practical tips of what you can do there. So the first thing, what I want to cover is how to protect against some hacker attacks like OWASP top 10, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and so on. The first tip is to use, web application firewall that is well known for many people, actually. So this is more security, and if you know something about security of applications, you definitely know what it is. So it is open source web application firewall. So it works like reverse proxy, analyze all the requests that are coming to your application, and trying to figure out which of these requests can be helpful to your application. So the idea is pretty simple. Good requests we can pass to application. Bad requests we need to block. What is good about more security? It has a great community. It supports virtual patching, so you can virtual patch some vulnerability without actually applying some fix in your code. So it gives you some time to actually make correction in your code and be sure that this vulnerability will not be exploited by bad guys. Mod security is incredibly customizable. So there are plenty rule sets that you can use. You can use some community-driven tools. You can use commercial tools. You can write tools by yourself. And good news today that mod security finally works well with Nginx, because last year I couldn't say this. Mod security was originally developed for Apache, so there were some issues with Nginx. Now it's okay. So deployment of mod security is, very, very easy. Just take, a module of mod security, just any other module for Nginx, install it, and you need just to use a special directive here in Nginx conf, to turn web application firewalls for some of your locations. So pretty simple here. Mod security is pretty simple web application firewall. It is good because it is very easy to understand how it works. Actually, it relies on signatures. What is signature? Signature is, like regular expression. We can configure some signatures, some rules to find some malicious vectors in requests that are coming to your application and in responses. So this is, for example, a special rule to block all the requests that try to exploit shell shock vulnerability. So it's pretty simple. You can apply this rule and just be sure that no one can exploit the shell shock vulnerability in your code. This is another example, and it is a part of the core rule set of mod security to find SQL injection operators in requests. But the rules, you need to be very accurate with the rules, because if you have a lot of rules, there will be a huge overhead with it. This is regular expression, so just imagine if each request will be matched to these thousands of rules. It is not a good idea if you have a high-load project, so you need to keep in mind that there is overhead here. Actually, mod security is good, and it is bad also. It can be pain in the neck, because it relies on the rule sets, and as any other tool that relies on signatures, it requires tuning. And this tuning of signatures is a very hard job. So if you just leave everything by default with no tuning by yourself, by your hands, there will be a bunch of false positives there. And it is not good, because you will block legitimate users. What can be worse? One more problem, that signatures never covers all the attacks. So it is possible to imagine that bad guys will find some new vectors that is not covered by these signatures, and it is quite possible, actually. And there are a lot of ways to bypass this web application firewall. So signatures, there's no guarantee that someone can obfuscate requests in such a way that mod security will not notice it. So it is possible to do, and there are a lot of bypass contests that are held all over the internet. So you can find a lot of information of how you can transform your request to make it invisible for mod security and for other web application firewalls as well. So it is not a problem only of mod security. Good practice, from the different companies that use mod security is to use different public rule sets that are available on internet, but to use them in the monitor mode. You use them in monitor mode because they are not crafted for your application, so there may be a lot of false positives, especially at the beginning of using. So you just leave it in monitor mode without actually blocking any requests. But if you want to use the system in blocking mode, to block all the requests in real time, you can, and you have to write rules by yourself. It depends on the application, and it depends on what you want, but it is possible. And if you will do it, I propose you to use a request response based alerts. So it is a very good, actually, thing in mod security, because you can compare some triggers that come from the analysis of the requests and compare it to the thing how our application answered. So, for example, if we see that someone tried to get etc password file in the request, and application, respond with the content of this file, just, starting with root, it can be, a real attack, or it may be even a security incident. So it is quite possible that someone really found, remote code execution or the ability to read files remotely. So it is a good thing to try. And actually, these rules are not, very expensive from the performance overview. So it is quite possible to use it. Actually, mod security is, a big topic, and I think some guys from mod security will have a talk today or tomorrow, so they will tell you more. But what I recommend to you is to read the book by Ivan Ristich. So it is a great, handbook of how you can, tune the mod security for different cases. And this is a really awesome book. You need to read it. Mod security is not the only one, actually, replication firewall for Nginx. There is also naxsi. So it is another replication firewall. It is also open source tool, so you can, download it. You are free to make some changes there. Originally, it was developed to find and detect SQL injection attacks and cross-site scripting attacks, but now it can do much more. So I really like this thing. So the good thing here that it doesn't rely on signatures. So there are no rules like in mod security that are very, very hard to maintain, to write, to understand these regular expressions. There are no signatures at all here. So what naxsi does, it looks for dangerous characters and some dangerous expressions, but they are not very big. So for example, so there is a small subset of these symbols, that covers, most of the malicious requests that can be detected by web application firewalls, like, drop operator, some SQL injection operator, or some symbols that are on the slides. So if naxsi see these characters in the request, it's increase the score of the request. So, for example, if there is some SQL injection SQL operators there, or some special characters, it increase score. And if the score more than some threshold, the request will be blocked. So pretty simple. This is a request, or this is an example of the rule. So it is pretty simple. So it just state that naxsi need to analyze body URL, some headers of request, and look for select, union, update, and other SQL operators there. Naxsi is very easy to install, like that easy as mod security. So it's pretty simple here. And this is the kind of file which describe the special symbols that naxsi looks for. If you look at it, you will find a lot of symbols that are used to implement cross-site scripting, SQL injection attacks, remote code execution, file inclusion, and so on. But rules are not enough, to make things done, because in some cases, these SQL operators, they can be a part of a good request. For example, if you try to protect Jira or some other tools, you will see that there are a lot of requests that have operators like in SQL, like select and delete. So what naxsi does, it requires you to make a whitelist. So you just tell naxsi where it is possible to use these bad patterns, for which requests bad patterns are okay, actually. And you don't need, the good news here, that you don't need to do it manually. There is a special tool that is included in naxsi. It is called nxutil. You can run it. You can make some changes in Nginx conf, with this learning mode directive in config file. And in this mode, naxsi will inspect all the requests that come to your application, and will try to find out what is good for your application, where these special characters that are malicious most of the times are correct and legitimate. And this is a good thing. One drawback that you need to do it, with any significant code updates. So if you update your application, deploying some new features there, you need to run this learning mode again, once again, and after another deployment, you need to do it again. There are also special rule sets that are available for some popular CMS block engines like WordPress available. So feel free to use them. I like the last release of naxsi because it comes with the integration with Elasticsearch and Kibana. So it is possible to move all the alerts there in the Elasticsearch and to visualize it with Kibana. So it is a pretty good thing for any security engineer or DevOps. If you want to see what is happening in terms of security, you can open Kibana and get their information in real time. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, there's also WallArm, where I work for. This is also web application firewall. But it's not free of charge, so I won't pay a lot of time here. The thing is that WallArm is a combination of web application firewall and vulnerability scanner, and it uses a hybrid approach. So there are filtering nodes that are installed in custom infrastructure, and there is a cloud that uses machine learning to craft the blocking rules specifically for your application. So the metadata about all the requests come to the cloud. There it is analyzed. And we craft all the blocking rules specifically for your application, so you don't need to, learn these learning schemes to update your rules manually. You don't need to do anything by yourself. Everything is done automatically. Even if you have, several code deployments a day, it will be okay. Moreover, we use vulnerability scanner to verify all the attacks that are coming to web applications. So if you see that there is a some attack that tries to exploit SQL injection in some part of your code, we can verify it with our vulnerability scanner and say for sure if there is vulnerability or it is just scanning without any security incident. We get information from different nodes, so particularly high-load sites use different nodes. So all the filtering nodes are based on the Nginx or Nginx Plus. So it is just as easy to use. What more important, we group different alerts and notifications from different nodes. So if you have 20 instances of Nginx and they create some alerts about malicious requests, we combine these requests, try to understand which of them are related to each other, which of them are part of one attack, and show it in the very convenient interface. As I've said, we have also vulnerability scanner. So if we found some vulnerability, we give you a quick overview of how you can fix it. The fourth thing you can do is to use repsheet. So repsheet is an additional layer of security. If you already have a web application firewall and you have some specific metrics of how you can see the sum of the requests malicious, you can use repsheet. So the author of repsheet call these tools a behavior-based approach to web application security, and you can use it not only to find malicious requests, but to find fraudulent activities on your website. For example, if you proceed credit cards or something like that, it can be very useful for you. Actually, it uses different resources to score all the requests that come to your web application. So repsheet is consisted of three things. It is a special module for Nginx. There is also a module for Apache if you want. There is a core library with the logic of how to proceed requests, which of them can be malicious. And there is a special UI tool to visualize the results. are free to use different types of information, different sources of information of which requests can be harmful. This can be some notifications from more security. It can be, you can put some logic based on the geography of requests. You can use any external feeds, if you buy, for example, feeds of bad IP addresses that are used to send spam, you also can use it. Here is the infrastructure, so it's pretty simple actually. So all the information about the traffic and about alerts are stored in a Redis database, and actually, with the help of Lua, there is scoring that is implemented there, and you can block requests, or you can, add additional header to all the requests, saying that some of the requests are bad. Once again, there is a special user interface where you can visualize some of the results, of the rep sheet. There was a wonderful talk by the author of repsheet at the last Nginx conference. I think that you can find it over the internet. This guy worked for Groupon, and he implemented repsheet while working on Braintree, which is now a part of PayPal. The second part of this talk is how we can deal with a denial of service attack. Unfortunately, we can deal by our hands only with pretty simple denial of DDoS attacks. And now we speak only about application layer, because we speak about Nginx. So everything we can do is to inspect HTTP requests and try to understand which of them are part of a DDoS attack. The traditional way to understand which requests are bad, to analyze the log files, just access log of your Nginx, find a pattern to understand which of the requests can be harmful, just find them, and ban everyone, who is found here. But it is hard to implement, actually. What you can do is several tips. First of all, you need to, not so many people know about 444 code. Nginx can use this code to instantly block the connection, without sending anything to the request. So the idea is most of the people who implement DDoS attacks, they choose the most resource-intensive part of your website. For example, search engine, where you can send there thousands of requests, or maybe 10,000 of requests, and the application will slow down. And if you see that there is a DDoS attack that is coming to your website and it is affecting some particular part of your application, you can use this code 444 to temporarily block all the requests that come to this part of your website. Of course, this functionality will be turned off, but your website can work while you do anything, buying DDoS mitigation service or something like that. So 444 code allow you to close connection and give nothing in response. So it is quite a good thing to do here. So and it is very easy to use, like to use return and 444 as a code. You can also use ipset util, like util for Linux. If you know for sure that there are bad requests that are part of DDoS attack are coming to this particular part of your website, you can just grab your access log and use ipset to ban all that IP addresses very quickly. So just this command will help you to ban all the IP addresses that are involved in the attack. But once again, you need to know that this particular part of the website. But it is quite common thing. You can use GeoIP banning. I don't like it at all because it is a weird way to block the DDoS attack, but in some cases it can be helpful. For example, if you have some shop in the United States and there are thousands of requests that are coming from China, or some European country, or Australia, some very distant part of the world from your shop, you can use this module to ban all the IP addresses. It can work. You also can try to, this is a kind of proof of concept, but you also can try to use machine learning or neural networks. It can be fun, and it actually works. Because the point is, you can open the access log of your application, and if you know your application well and you understand what is good for it, what is bad, you can find which of the requests are bad and which of the requests are good, by your eyes. And if you could do this, and I'm pretty sure you could, you can train special scripts using machine learning libraries like PyBrain or some others, or use neural networks to find, to make this tool to classify which requests are bad, which are good. And there is a good proof of concept of a Dropbox engineer. Here is a link, who just saw some lectures on Coursera for machine learning and neural networks, and he was able to write a special script to distinguish denial of service requests in the access log. So it works. I do really like it, so you can try it also. But of course, you need to have, in this case, access log, with good requests. To have an ability to learn your scripts, you need to have this. The ninth tip is to limit your buffer size and timeouts. And so, of course, if we speak about some pet projects, you don't need to think about optimization a lot. But if we speak about high-load sites, you definitely need to tune your Nginx, your operating system. So it is important. It is impossible just to to install it and to think that everything will be okay. However, things are not always okay. So you need to tune a server. And as you know, every resource has a limit, so especially memory. And keep it in mind while you will do all this stuff. There are special directives in Nginx. I won't stop, in details here, but there are directives to limit buffers. There are directives to limit timeouts. There are a bunch of them. The main question here is, how to find this perfect value, to set as the values for limiting buffers and timeouts. And unfortunately, there is no universal way how to find them. You need to run some experiments, and there are some approaches you can try. So one of these approaches is to set up at first a minimum value for the timeout buffer, and then run all the tests against your website and see if it works well. If it doesn't work well, and it is pretty likely that it will not work well, you just increase this, value, double it, and run these checks again. And it is pretty simple, but in a lot of cases it works. So just try it. The same thing is to limiting connection to Nginx. So there are special directive like limit con and limit rec you can use here. What you need to do to use it wisely, you need to run benchmarks again by your website. So you need to understand how much requests, how many requests can your websites handle, in the normal time. This is good for you in different cases, but it's also good if you want to configure this limiting. So you can use Apache benchmark or some other tools to understand what is their performance of your web application. It makes sense also to set limits for some locations which are extremely resourceful, resource consuming. For example, as I mentioned, it can be a search engine of your web application, or maybe some analytic module or something like that, because it is the primary target for all the guys who want to implement the denial of service attack to your website. There is also a nice util fail to ban. You can use it, to ban people who or IP addresses who try to generate a lot of requests to some particular part of your web application. And the last one tip, actually, for today, but it is a great one. The tip is to use test cookie module. So it is a special module to quickly understand if the user or if the request that is coming to your application is produced by a bot. So the thing here is that usually most of the bots that implement HTTP flat are pretty stupid. So this is a kind of curl or maybe some script that is written in Python or Ruby. So it has lack of some mechanism that browser has, for example, cookies or redirect or some other things. So it is pretty simple and straightforward way. You can just check if the client supports cookies, or you can check if it supports redirect, or you can check if it supports JavaScript. You can also check if it supports Flash, but now a lot of browsers doesn't support it, so you don't need to do this, but you can. And actually, this test cookie model is a great implementation of how you can do these checks automatically. It is written as a module for Nginx in C. I see that some guys try to implement the very same thing in Lua right now with a Lua model for the Nginx, and it is not so hard. There's a great description of how this module works. So you can, if you want to re-implement everything in Lua, you can do it by yourself. And it works. Actually, it works because if you face with some dumb denial of service attack with not so wise bots, you will definitely block most of them with this module. And actually, it is a good way to block their parsing of your website, and because you can block not only that bots who try to make your site down, but to block also that bots that try to parse the information of your website for data mining purposes. There's also a drawback here, because you will also block Google bots and some other useful bots, so you need to keep in mind that you need to deal with it. I like it, but what we see right now that a lot of bad guys try to make their attacks more sophisticated. So they just not only use some curl scripts or something like that. They actually infect different machines all over the internet. They launch a browser there, make this window invisible, and actually generate these requests using this invisible browser. And in this case, you can do nothing with these bots because we call them full browser stack bots. And it is much more difficult to detect them. So these checks doesn't work against them. So this is actually everything I wanted to say to you today. So feel free to ask questions. Thank you for your attention. Do you have any questions? How to make your applications more secure? Yeah. Can you use my microphone? Because there's recording there.
So you work for Wallam, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you publish like any data about reports that you generate? Like any, like let's say you have a database. Well, I'm not sure if you do, but you have a database of like suspicious IPs and stuff like that. Do you publish anything like that?
Actually, we have some researchers. They not much of them are publicly available, so
Okay.
we share them around some cybersecurity companies.
Okay.
Yeah, but we try not to make them public in many cases because they can be used by bad guys. But we will. we will publish more. Actually, we have some plans to make some part of Wallarm open source, so it will be possible to use them free of charge. So and this is this is what we want, to make more for the community. But anyway, you can try it free of charge, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any questions? Yeah.
Maybe I missed it, but are there any Nginx directives that will limit the number of connections per IP, or is it just overall?
Sorry. Yeah. Actually, the speakers are in front of you, so I don't hear you well. Could you please repeat it?
Yes. Are there any Nginx directives to limit the number of requests per IP, or is it just overall?
It's overall, actually. So, but you can do it. I can tell you, after the talk how to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, but actually, it is not a good idea to use, these limitations by IP, by certain IP in the Nginx, because you have firewall for it. So maybe it is not a good idea to limit the connection per one certain IP, using Nginx. So it is not a good tool for that. Or you mean to limit the number of connections for each IP for you?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
If you're getting attacked by a particular IP.
Actually, any limitation based on IP address are not very good today, because a lot of users are behind the net. So if you block this user by the IP address, you can block a bunch of users. And this is why we don't like actually to block user by IP address. Yeah, just leave me your contact. I will come to the answer to you. I'm pretty sure that it is possible to do.
So Nginx has a concept of zones, and you can define a zone that will keep track.
Yeah. With zones, you are flexible to do a lot of stuff actually. So.
And that's something that you can do for eliminating connections by IP.
Thanks. So thank you for your attention then.